Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. When the Brazilians elected a new president and Mr. Bolsonaro was out of his office and Mr. Lula da Silva was voted in, since in my assessment he is a leftist, very much leftist, I called him a communist. I had very big doubts when I was reading an article on the president of Brazil. But it seems like the president of Brazil is not choosing the first club, which is the United States' club, but sticks with the second club that's in formation. That is Russia and China, India, Brazil, South Africa on the structure, on the, how do you call it, skeletal of BRICS, the countries, the economic organization on the developing countries. The president of Brazil, made some statements and met some other counterparts that were very, very interesting. I will mention, for instance, the fact that Lula da Silva met his Argentinian counterpart and they spoke about forming a common currency. Well, and they said exactly, Lula said exactly why. So they wane away, they leave the dominance of the dollar, so they're not as dependent on the US dollar anymore. Well, that's not good news for the Americans, for the big club, obviously, right? Then that was one of the decisions that seemed strange. He also communicated, I think, with Maduro, who already jumped on that idea and agreed with both presidents of Argentina and Brazil. Lula sticks with the BRICS, with developing countries, and that's not good for the big club. And now, in this article that I will discuss in a few seconds, again, Lula da Silva is just going to flicker Germany, the mighty Germany, over its beak. Well, I'm not celebrating that, but why am I not celebrating? I will tell you later. Let's read this article first. So this article comes from the New Voice of Ukraine via Yahoo News, and this is from Friday, January 27, 2023. Brazil refuses to provide Germany with tank shells for Ukraine. Did you hear that? I know you did. So Brazil says to Germany, no. Germany asked for tank shells for Ukraine. And Lula said no, or at least the defense secretary, I'm guessing. And he's obviously guided by Lula, the president. According to the article, the decision was made at a meeting with the head of the Brazilian Armed Forces, Raul Botelho, and Brazilian Defense Minister José Múcio on January 20th. So this thing has been decided 7 days ago. This was on the eve of the resignation of the army commander Julio César de Arruda. Military servicemen and politicians familiar with the matter claim that Arruda said that Brazil would receive around $4.9 million for the tank rounds. Obviously, it's kind of, we're going to pay you because the German population will get the bill for that. And not only the German population, but the adults, but their children, and so on. They're all for Ukraine. But it seems like the leftist Lula refused the transfer right here. Lula refused the transfer, arguing that Russia shouldn't be provoked, quote unquote. Brazil maintains a position of neutrality for economic reasons, refusing to participate in sanctions against Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, despite condemning the full-scale invasion of Ukraine at the UN. Berlin promises to transfer Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine by the end of March. So Lula doesn't want to provoke Russia, the dictator. I don't think that's the reason, but hey, that's what he says. I think that Lula, being a leftist, and the leftists remember the, how do you call those guys that come over and take over your land? You know what I mean? So he remembers very well the capitalist governments of other countries that came and took over certain kind of countries and sucked their energy and their resources. So he is not, he could not be on the side of these countries, which are obviously the former colonial states, including the United States of America, which is not a colonial state. But anyway, even though we can think of Philippines and other instances, but nevertheless, the United States is not a colonial power. It just grabbed the land and incorporated in its country however it wanted. So the Germans or the French or the Portuguese or the Brazilians, they eventually, lost their territories that they, and France, obviously, and Great Britain and the Netherlands, the Belgians, remember Congo? Yeah. So all these guys eventually, they didn't say, well, that's the Belgian Congo, it's not Belgium, But the United States, whatever they grabbed, when they grabbed Hawaii, that was not the US's Hawaii, it was United States. The same with Alaska. They bought it from the Tsars, that's okay, right? Then they got what? From Mexico after the beautiful war of Mexican-American War. Again, they got half of Mexico. They didn't, they paid, they purchased it. Like they purchased Louisiana from Napoleon because he needed money for his wars against the big coalitions in Europe. But hey, you do whatever you need to do. Remember in 1812, the war, the Canada, British, blah, blah, blah. There were some people thinking that and claiming that actually the United States should go and get Canada as well. So it was close. So let's go back to this guy Lula, who remembers who the former colonial powers were and who considered, South America their backyard, and they kicked how do you call them, the Europeans out of that. Was it a Monroe Doctrine or no? Anyway, remember the Europeans, that was our sphere of influence. You have nothing to do here. That's what the Americans told them at the beginning of the century. That century, not this one. And they don't forget. But unfortunately, money solves problems and bribes solve decisions. And Lula, I'm pretty sure he knows that. So he's not going to listen to Germany, and they pretend that, hey, no, we are going to, stay away. We don't want to provoke Russia. I don't think so. And don't get me wrong, Russia did the same thing as the United States did in getting lands around. It was not like, hey, guys, you want to join us? No. I mean, you know, if you're familiar with the Russian history, you know that we have Catherine the Great. That's why she's the Great, because she did a lot of and not only, but just I mentioned her just as in passing. Not that I want to cover for the Russians or anything like the Russian Federation, which is still a federation by choice. Anyway, so here Lula, I think he knows what's next for him if he goes with these guys. He's just going to be bribed. So I think and I agree, how should I put it? I admire that when I see people with balls, and I think he's got balls, because you don't just refuse Germany for Russia. That means you have to say the right thing at United Nations, but it's not that, oh my God, they voted against it. Pff, yeah, okay, but when it's about the real thing, about giving weapons to Germany, shells, tank shells, they're not going to do that. So I can tell you every day I love you. But when you ask for something and I have to prove, no. So which one is it? I love you. I really love you. Really, really, really. Okay, when I need to really prove it by acting, upon my love that I have for you, I don't do shit. So which one is it? This is kind of like Brazil. I love you, United Nations. I'm with you. Yes, yes, yes. Is that an important thing? No. Okay, I'm with you guys. But I mean, it's even an important thing. Abstain. And when it's about really showing love, they don't show love. They say Germany, pock, over the big ping. So I like when countries are sovereign, or at least they show independence. They show their own independent foreign policy, unlike European countries, which are under of their boss, the United States of America. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.